Hello and welcome to Monday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where today we're going to be investigating Area 51 on the channel with, actually the puzzle's called Area 81 and it's by Math Pesto. Now this is an interesting puzzle. Let me talk to you a little bit about this. It has a perfect rating on Logic Masters Germany and just 3 stars out of 5 for difficulty, so it's hitting all the right boxes. It's been recommended to us, which is also great, but when our testers looked at it, they did note that the rule set is it's not that it's not that long. And for many of you who are familiar with some of the Japanese logic puzzle styles like Slitherlink and Masyu, this will be completely old hat. But if you're new to loop drawing and sudoku, these rules may seem a bit too much, but we've decided we're going to give it a go on the basis that the puzzle is apparently brilliant. And also some of the comments on Logic Masters Germany said were from people who are not familiar with loop drawing, and they said, well, I wasn't familiar with loop drawing, but I still had an absolute blast trying this puzzle. So I hope that if you are less experienced in certain types of Japanese logic problems, this puzzle will attract you to the form rather than drive you away from it. What have I got to tell you about before I talk more about Math Pesto's puzzle? There are lots of things going on. Let me start with a brief mention of yesterday's puzzle that I attempted. It was KNT's puzzle called Pathfinder. The video for that puzzle is, I think, 2 hours 45 minutes long. It's something like that. It is an amazing puzzle, an amazing experience for me to be able to solve that, to keep the camera running for that amount of time and find my way through what it's got to be one of the best Sudokus of all time, also one of the most challenging. So if you like, I think we had comments saying that this is longer than the first Harry Potter film. It's only 5 minutes shorter than the first Avatar movie. So it is a proper mission. But if you do enjoy hard Sudoku, definitely have a look at the puzzle by KNT and perhaps even watch the video. You may enjoy it, and I apologize that sometimes these puzzles almost beat me. Now, what else do I need to tell you about? We're going to be streaming on Wednesday, Teiji, the game that we've been making our way through. I'm sort of hoping we might be able to finish the game on Wednesday night. That is what the comments seem to suggest. So if you want to see Mark and I do battle with Teiji, 10 o'clock UK time on Wednesday, we'd love to have your company. Next, I've got some birthdays to do. Now, Jess, down there in Australia, one of my favourite countries on earth, your friend Izzy wrote to us and said that you were turning the maximum sum of a 2-cell killer cage, basically. So congratulations on reaching that fine old age, and I hope you have a chocolate cake, obviously. And then Jim, also known as Jimothy, you've turned the maximum sandwich clue today. Oh no, yesterday. You turned it yesterday, but your email came in too late, and I couldn't do the congratulations in yesterday's email. So I think you had your chocolate cake yesterday. But I am a big fan of people expressing their ages in the form of Sudoku rules. So yeah, well done to Jim and to Jess, and I hope you have great days, obviously. And then we're just on to what we've got going on Patreon. We've got Glum Hippo's Sudoku Hunt at the moment, where you can win the plushy Glum Hippo if you manage to solve all the puzzles, and lots of feedback coming in for that hunt, all of it good. So do have a look at it. If you do get stuck, don't forget there is a Patreon only or patron only chat channel on the Discord server, where I believe hints and tips are shared fairly liberally. So if you do get stuck on a Patreon reward puzzle, that might be a place to look for help. And the following managed to make their way through the entirety of Jay Dyer's hunt, which was last month's reward. So very well done to Timothy Chan, Arachnothera, Eric McKee, Alexander Herges, Kinky Turtle, Carla Barquest, Gray Crisanto, Torben Nielsen, Craig Anderson, Tobias Binder, Joseph Costal, William Searcy, Sander Hoym, I think. I hope I'm getting your surname right, Sander. Brendan Keyberg, Garrett Smith, Scott Devine, Zach Burns, and Julia G. All of you sent in the correct entry. Very well done indeed. Now let us do battle with Area 81 and see what Math Pesto, whose puzzles I always absolutely love, has got in store for us. And we can see there's the alien and some cactuses as well, or cacti I suppose they should be called. Right, normal Sudoku rules apply. Draw a non-intersecting loop along some edges of the grid. Right, let's stop right there, because in the software, if you're new to cracking the cryptic, you may not know how to get the ability to draw loops. What you do is you click the cog icon, and that brings up this page here, and you enable your pen tool. My pen tool is always enabled. So if I click on the line drawing bit now, you can see I can draw. Oh, actually, I'm going to be drawing line. Am I going to be drawing along grid lines or? Yeah, okay, it's Slitherlink. Yes, so I'm going to be drawing lines along the edges, and it's just, just as you might expect, you just drag your mouse around and you can draw these loops. So we've got to draw a non-intersecting loop along some edges of the grid. Aliens are inside the loop and cacti are outside the loop. Okay. Oh, and by the way, I think that this puzzle, I read that this puzzle Area 81, which Math Pesto has made, harks back to a puzzle form invented by David Millar, who's quite a well-known puzzle maker. I've certainly done lots of David's puzzles in the past, called Area 51, where I want to say in Area 51 logic puzzles, David combines Slitherlink, Masyu, and maybe Cave in one form, and I think they have aliens in them as well. So that is the sort of form that Math Pesto has built his Sudoku. And it looks like there's some crop key rules as well coming into this puzzle. Now, a digit in a white square indicates the number of that cell's edges that are part of the loop. Right, so let's find a square. There's a square. I don't want to put numbers in this. Right, so this is a Slitherlink clue, if you're familiar with Slitherlink, because what we fill in here, imagine this cell was a 3. That would be saying 3 of the edges, so this cell has 4 edges, obviously. 3 of its edges have to form part of the loop. If it was a 2, it would be 2 of the edges. A 1 would be 1 of the edge. Now, I suppose it couldn't be 0, could it? Because that wouldn't be a normal Sudoku digit. So I would think all of the squares have to be filled with 1, 2, 3, perhaps 4 if we're being trolled, but we probably aren't. Anyway, let's carry on. A digit in a white circle is inside the loop and indicates the number of cells inside the loop seen horizontally and vertically, including the circled cell itself. Right, so let's look at a circled cell. And let's draw a bit of a loop around the circled cell. So let's say the loop did this. Let's say that was the whole loop. Might have to change the colour, it's a bit bad on the black background. But let's imagine this was the whole loop. Then I think this circle would contain a 3, if I understand the rules correctly. Because basically this is inside the loop, it sees 3 cells this way, including itself, before it gets to a border, and things that are outside the loop don't count towards the total, or block the view. Isn't that the expression used? Obstruct vision, yes. So that would all be blocked, and therefore this would just see those 3 cells. That's how I think the cave aspect of this must work. Now, here we go. Here's the Masyu rule. Now, the Masyu rule is always going to be the hard thing to explain, because Masyu is not the most intuitive thing to explain, even if it's not embedded in a Sudoku. So let's see how Math Pesto's done with this. The loop passes through a white dot in a straight line and makes a 90-degree turn on one or both of the nearest cell corners along the loop. So as we go through white dots, we have to go straight, is what we're being told. I'm going to change the colour here. I'm going to go to red. Yeah. So as we go through a white dot, we must go straight. So we cannot turn And then what we're told is we must turn in one or more hang on, let me just get this right, in one or both of the nearest cell corners along the loop. So this is one cell corner here at that point. I don't know if it, and this is in another point here. And what we cannot do is this, because then we will have turned in neither of these positions and will have gone too straight in effect. So we could turn there and then that could continue, or we could turn in both of those. That would be fine. But what we can't do is just have a massive long straight line when we go through our white dots. Now the loop makes a 90-degree turn on a black dot. So on a black dot, we've got to do something like this, and does not turn at the next opportunity in either direction. So when you go through a black dot in Masyu, you have to sort of, yeah, okay, that's the way to think about it. So if we do a 90-degree turn in a black dot, you could see this would be the earliest opportunity the loop could turn. It could turn up, it could turn down, or it could go straight on. Now, because it's gone through the black dot, it must go straight on there, because this is the first opportunity for it to turn, and it mustn't. Same is true on that side of the loop. So that's actually quite well expressed, I think. I sort of understand it, even if I try and approach it as someone who hasn't done 3 million Masyu puzzles in their life. I probably haven't done 3 million, but I probably have done 3,000. Now, what else have we got going on here? We're nearly there. Diagonally adjacent cells joined by a white dot contain consecutive digits, and by a black dot contain digits in a 1:2 ratio. Right, so these white dots aren't just Masyu clues, they are also sort of weird Kropki type clues. So those two cells have to be consecutive. Ah, so do those, presumably. Oh, I hadn't appreciated this. Okay, so oh, that's really interesting. Right, so white dots are saying that the diagonally adjacent digits, so if this was a 1, this would have to be a 2 because it needs to be consecutive with the digit that it's diagonally opposite. But the same is going to be true in those cells. And for the black dots, we need these to be in a 1:2 ratio. So if that was a 3, that would have to be a 6 because we couldn't put 1.5 in there. 1:2 ratio is just a posh way of saying that one digit is double the other. But we then would have to repeat that exercise for those two diagonally adjacent cells as well. So it is a long rule set, and for that Math Pesto apologises profusely, but we don't apologise because we trust Math Pesto to have produced an amazing puzzle. Do have a go. The way to play is to click the link under the video as usual. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. Now, what was the alien? Was the alien inside my loop? The alien is inside the loop, right? So the alien is inside the loop, but the cactuses are outside the loop. So we're probably going to want to colour, are we? Let's have a colour for inside the loop, which I'll make green, and a colour for outside the loop, which I'll make grey. So do I now know whether this is... Could that be inside the loop? That's a Slitherlink clue. Yes, it can be, I think. If that's inside the loop, it would have to be at least a 2 Slitherlink clue, because it couldn't be a 1 Slitherlink clue and delineate itself from this. Okay, I'm not sure whether this is inside or outside the loop. What about... Oh, I know what we should do. All of the Slitherlink clues, which are the square clues, can only be 1s, 2s, and I'm going to say 3s, because on the basis that if I did try and make a Slitherlink clue of 4, I'm saying 4 of its edges are used by the loop, which is going to do that to the loop and make it a 1-cell loop, and I'm guessing that that's just impossible. Yes, in fact, it is impossible for us to have a 4, because we are told, aren't we, that the circled clues are inside the loop. So it's not possible to just have one of these squares being the entirety of the loop. That won't work. So each square is a 1, 2 or a 3 clue, and each circle is a green cell. It's inside the loop. So we can... Let's try and do this properly. That's a circle inside a square, very Vitruvian Man-esque. Those are all green. That one? No, that's a square, so I can't assume that. sorry, let me just think about this now. I'm sure that there's something obvious. How can that be a 1 if it's inside the loop? It can't. Oh, it can be a 3 though. Right. If it was a 3, it would be a 3 in the corner. So this one might get a song. But what it can't be is a 1, because I will have, in order to get this inside the loop, I will have to do those 2 cells, won't I? So it's at least a 2. Right, those 2 cells are both inside the loop. So if we think about the Masyu properties of this white dot, we know that the loop goes straight through this cell. So if it did that, these would be on different sides of the loop. Well, there are only 2 options for the cells that are on each side of the loop. One of them was going to be inside the loop, the other is going to be outside the loop. They aren't both inside the loop. Now please, when I say this, none of you constructors out there even begin to think about creating Mobius strips or something. That isn't going to work for this. So this must go straight. And, okay, those cells are now on the opposite side of the loop to cells that are inside the loop, so they are outside the loop. Now, this is inside the loop, so the loop must allow that to happen. And that cell now you can see is green, because there's no way of sort of drawing a distinction between this cell and this cell. They must be joined up by cells that are inside the loop. Right. I can see one thing here relating to these 2 cells, which is potentially interesting. Exactly one of those 2 cells is inside the loop. I think that must be right, because these 2 cells see the same number of green cells in their column. So it might be they only see 3, it might be they see a great number, but because there's no distinction between them in terms of the vertical number of cells they see, if they didn't have different horizontal numbers of cells they see, they would contain the same digit and break Sudoku rules. So one of these must be green and one of these must be grey. Now that one is Slitherlink again, so we can't assume it's inside the loop. Oh, that can't be a 1, because of course this is on the boundary, so I should do that, and now I can do that. Aha, right. So this is now a 2 or a 3. If it's a 2, the loop has to continue in here and here. If it's a 3, it's got to close. If it's a 3, it's also a cave clue, so that cell would then be inside the loop. Right. Well, I don't know what to do next up here, but the next thing that's catching my eye and shouting at me a little bit is this arrangement. Because what I can see here is I've got to be quite careful about how I draw my loop segments around this black dot, because what we can't do is no, we can do that. What we can't do is this, because then you can see this cell is on the opposite side of the loop to this cell, yet these are both meant to be inside the loop. So we can't, right, so we can't do that and we can't do that. So if that is a loop segment, I have to do that as a loop segment, which is looking... Well, then I couldn't close that there. That feels a bit cluttered to me. What about if this was a loop segment? And one way to think about black Masyu dots is that it's always necessary, if we think about the vertical plane or a vertical line, because this turns, because we have to turn the loop on this dot, there must either be that segment in or that segment in It's not possible to have neither, and it's not possible to have both. So if it's this, and if it's this, oh, it's not that. Oh, that's it. It's simple. Right. That's lovely. It's not this. If you can't see why it's not this, pause the video, give yourself a moment or two, agad mator style, and then congratulate yourself. For those of you who managed to do it, congratulations. The reason this is impossible is because of this white dot. If we did draw the black dot like this is a really cool this is a trick that happens in good Masyu puzzles. So the fact that Math Pesto has built it into Area 81 is rather cool to me, because you can't now, if you go through there, you're not creating a loop, you're creating an intersection. If you go through there, you're creating an intersection because you can't turn on a white dot. So that means that this black dot has to be that, and actually we're going to get the cluttered version, aren't we? We're going to get this. Now we know these are inside the loop, so that's inside the loop. These are the other side of the loop, so they're outside the loop. And we can't cut this off. If we draw this in, that's our loop, isn't it? And it's a very strange thing indeed, because we're going to have sort of an internal loop and then another loop going round the whole of the green cells. That's two loops. We're only meant to create one loop. So we've got to do that. Oh, that's doing something to this clue. This is now outside the loop. This is inside the loop because it's the opposite to being outside the loop. This is now inside the loop because it's, again, we can do all this. All this becomes green. This clue, from a Slitherlink perspective now, has 3 red lines around its edges. So that cell is our first digit. And it's defining not only the Slitherlink characteristics of the cell, but the number of green cells seen by this cell here. And that's got to be 3 now, so it must see this one, which means that that is in the loop, and we can draw that little loop segment in. Still don't know what this one is doing, although I suppose we now know it's not a, oopsie, I now know it's not a 3. So this is either a 1 or a 2. But we've got to make sure in whatever we do here. Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. It's exactly the point I noticed earlier. But what I didn't do earlier when I noticed this, which I've now seen I should have done and would have been quite cool, is because I know that these are different colours, these two cells, what can I do? I should have done that. That was a forced loop segment I didn't think about. But now you can see the loop has come into the northeast side of this cell here. So it's either going to go that way or it's going to go that way. In other words, there's going to be one edge consumed by this line segment hitting this cell. But we know that this is a second line segment that's definitely forced, so this must be 2. And in fact, yes, so it must go down then in order to only be 2, because it can't be 3. That's got to go there, and this cell is now, no, that's outside the loop. This is inside the loop. That's not a circle clue. Okay, so that's not incorrect. Oh, I see. Sudoku. Oh, haha! And that's 3 in the corner. That's 3 in the spot, like losing its religion. Great, a 3 in the corner. Now that is both a Slitherlink clue. So in other words, we're going to be creating a cul-de-sac in this cell. Right, that's lovely as well. This is quality already. I love this. Now, how can this be, given it's got to have a Slitherlink 3 clue. A Slitherlink 3 clue always looks like this. So it's going to be some form of that type thing. Which means, but it's a 3 clue as well for its sort of cave characteristic. It's got to see three cells. Now if I was to make it a cul-de-sac here, for it to see 3 cells, well, it would have to see this cell, but then you'd have to draw that to stop it seeing 4 cells. Well, you can't. This can't be inside the loop, and this can't, given this is inside the loop, so that's not going to work. So we've got to go up. So that's forced, that forces this to be outside the loop to stop this seeing more than 3. That gives us another delineation there. We now know, of course, that this cell must be outside the loop. Let me think about this. What does that mean? That means, so our alien... I don't know what that means, sorry, that's not 3 anymore. Okay. 3 by sudoku? Is it one of those cells? If in absolute dire straits, then consider sudoku. Not for very long, but consider it. Oh, look, there's something simple. Right, I'm now going to look at this white dot, because we can't differentiate these two. These have to be on the same side of the loop. So that allows us, look, to do that line segment. Don't know what that does, but it definitely lets me grey those in. Do I know what this one does? Don't think I do. It looks to me like it could go either way. It could be like that or like that. If it goes downwards, though, we're in big danger of creating a big long stripe through our white dots. So this would have to turn and this would have to turn in order to prevent us from breaking the rules of white dottageness. Okay. What about... How can you have... How can you have a cave clue of 1? Isn't that nonsense? If that's a 1... Am I not supposed to just... I think that's an automatic contradiction. Because it's saying we only see 1 cell, including itself, which is itself, on the loop. And therefore I'd have to enclose it with 4 edge cells, and it would break the Slitherlink component of its clue. So I think that is a 3. Which means it's a cul-de-sac clue. It's a cul-de-sac clue and a cave clue. Yeah, that's lovely actually. Right, so this matters for the white dots here, because it has to be a Slitherlink 3, and we have to be doing something like this. Therefore, how could that be the way that these white dots work? It can't be, because now I can't make this a Slitherlink 3 anymore. So I think what that's saying is I've got to go vertically like this, and therefore the last Slitherlink 3 clue must be there, and that's going to do me a world of good. Look, now I can do this. I've got an absolute boatload of stuff that's outside the loop now. That cell needs to see the loop somewhere, because it hasn't been visited by loop yet. Well, how's it going to be? How can one of this cell's edges be a loop cell? Well, the only way is if it's this one. So that must be loop, which means that's loop, that's loop, that's loop, that's loop. Bingo. There we go. So this is a 1, is what we're learning, which means this cell's a 2. Now that's a 2 beneath a grey cell. So I can see some patterns of 2 that don't work now. That pattern wouldn't work, would it? because this would then be inside the loop, but there would not, we couldn't delineate it from this outside the loop cell. So if this is inside the loop, I have to draw that. And if it's inside the loop, I have to draw that. So we'd have to sort of go like this. Yes, we'd have to do that, in fact, which doesn't look very likely. Then that would be outside the loop. Oh, no, that's nonsense. You could go up there. Okay, so that could be inside the loop. If it's outside the loop, but it's got 2 in it, then that bottom one's not in it. And we can't delineate these two, can we? So we'd have to do this, and then this. And this is outside the loop, so then we do that and that. I'm not sure. I'm still not sure I know what that does. What about... Oh! What about the dots? I've just been thinking about the dots in terms of loops, but they're Kropke dots as well, aren't they? So that... Oh, that's lovely. Yeah. Okay. So this cell has to be consecutive with 3. And that cell has to be consecutive with 3. So this must be a 2-4 pair, and we know the order from the 2 down at the bottom. Oh, that's lovely. Okay. What does that do? I don't know. That cell has got to be consecutive with 4. But can't be 3. So that's a 5, I think. So this pattern of white dots is weird. You sort of get, it goes to, we get what in effect has become a 4-cell consecutive sequence of 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like there's an inbuilt slow thermo in there, isn't it? Now... right, we've got circles across a black dot there. Okay, yes. This is a massive digit. Wow. Right, okay. So this cell is counting how many green cells it sees. Well, it sees 4 at the moment, but it can't be 4. So it's a number higher than 4, yet it also has to be a valid black dot digit because of this relationship. Well, 5, 7 and 9 are not possible black dot digits because if you try and put them in, you'll find there's a problem. This either now has to be 10 or 2.5. If that's 7, this has to be 14 or 3.5. If it's 9, 4.5 or 18. None of those are valid Sudoku digits. So that cell is 6 or 8, which means that this cell is 3 or 4. And it's not, well, it's not 3, it sees 4. So that's 4. This is 8, and that means this sees 8, which it doesn't at the moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So all of those become green. That becomes grey at the bottom to bound it. So we do that, we do that, we do that. Oh, I see. Right, that's 9. Because it can't be 8, and it's already seeing 8, so it must be 9. So one of these is green. This 4 is done, so we can delineate more loop, loop, loop. That's got to be loop. We get a grey here. That must be green now. We don't know what this is, I don't think. Oh, I tell you what we do know. That 4 sees its number, so we do this and this, and we've got to make this grey. And now, for our next trick, we will argue about other things. What is the obvious way to do this? Why can't I see how to do it? Is it going to be... Is it this 9? One of those exactly is green. No, sorry, I'm not sure. These clues? Oh, these clues have to be a little bit... Right, they see 5 already, don't they? Well, that one sees 6, because it sees this one as well. So this is at least 6, and this is at least 5. But I'm not sure that we can... Can we go dramatically beyond that? I'm not sure that we can. This cell is opposite an 8 on a white dot, so that has to be 7 or 9. Oh, these two cells are definitely outside the loop. Yes, okay, that does make sense, because I was just wondering how I knew that was outside the loop, but that's from that white dot. Oh! Oh, of course. I was... Right, the way I got to this was completely mad. Oh, I've just spotted something else that's not mad. Wow. Okay, 2 things. Don't forget that our white dots have to turn in one of the first opportunities, if you like, on either side. So this white dot has not turned in a northerly direction. It's just gone straight through the next opportunity to turn. So here, this must turn. So this is not a valid extension of the loop. But I could have combined that with the fact that this is a 3 clue, which can't see more than 3, so that actually forces the direction of the turn. But let's look at this as well. This is coming into a white dot, so that's got to continue. And then this white dot also must turn, but it can't turn across and delineate 2 different thingies there. So that turns that way, and now we might have all sorts of things we can put in. So that, and that are all turning grey. This loop needs to connect to its friends, so these become green. We can delineate this, make sure that we're building our loop appropriately. We can get rid of that redness. We can well, what can we do now? Oh no, actually that was a real flurry of activity with some lovely logic that doesn't do anything, I fear. Wow, okay. So, oh, you know what I've not used? This black dot. When I say I haven't used it, I haven't used its loop building properties. Well, so going back to what we said before, there must be a 2-cell sequence which cannot be northwards, so it must be southwards, and there must be a 2-cell sequence to this way or this way, so it's got to be that. And that's going to give me some more grey look and another green, which I suppose allows me to do this. Oh no, I was wondering if there was going to be some oh, that's got to be green. That's got to be green because this is green. If this was a black cell, then we'd have to sort of shut the loop off in 2 directions. That won't work. So that's green. So these totals now have gone up, haven't they? That can't be 5 anymore. 1, 2, that's at least 7. Okay, so if that's 7, that's got to be 1 higher than it, which means this one is at least 8. So this is 8 or 9. Oh, and this is 7. That's beautiful. This is 7 or 8 and can't be 8. So that must be 7. That must be 8, which is going to tell us that this is as far as we can see down this column. So we have to now close the loop off like this. Might be connectivity question about, well, or... Well, that's an interesting point, actually. If this green cell joined over here to its friends in green, it's going to isolate a patch of grey, and that's not going to work, is it? Because that's going to create an internal loop, and we're going to find we'd create two loops in the puzzle if we do that. So I don't think this cell can be anything other than grey. We need to get this grey to the boundary, so that grey's got to come there, that grey's got to come there. We can draw this in here. This 7. Oh, yeah. Okay, now, right, I keep forgetting I can use these white dots two ways round. So this 7 has to be consecutive with that digit. Well, it can't be 8, so it must be 6. And that digit's got to be consecutive with a digit that's not 7, so that's got to be 9. Oh, right, so white dots. Is that right? Yeah, so white dots we can view as 4 consecutive digits, which is very weird. So I'm going to definitely think about that in a moment or two. Let me just ponder this for a moment. Oh no, I thought I was going to be able to get a digit then. I can't. 1, 4 and 5 into these squares, with this not able to be 4. So where does 4 go in box 2? By Sudoku it goes there, which is quite cool. That... Oh no, so that was total nonsense. No, okay, the reason... Yeah, no, that was nonsense that these have to be 4 digits in a consecutive sequence. It was the case here because these two had to be consecutive, but because these don't have to be consecutive, you don't necessarily have to have 4 consecutive digits on these funny diagonal lines. This square now has to be a 3 or a 5, but both apparently are possible. Right, here's a small point. Let's try and think about those two cells, and the thing that I notice about those squares is from a parity perspective they're odd, because they see 2, 4, 6 and 8 in their row, and if they're odd, that digit must be a 6, because it has to be even in order to be in a consecutive relationship with these two digits which we know are odd. So if you take any pair of consecutive digits, you'll have an odd and an even. So we've just worked out that this is even and it can't be 2, 4 or 8. So that's 6. These have got to be a 5, 7 pair. That's got to be a 9. That's gorgeous. Now 1 in that row seems to be placed. So now this square... Okay, so now 1 is there. Look, okay, that would have been straightforward if I'd used this 1 by Sudoku before, but of course I'm never one to major on that topic. These squares are 8 and 9. These squares are 2 and something. 2, 6 and 7 maybe. Fives and 7s here. 2s by Sudoku are in one of those two cells. Okay, and if this is 3 or 5... Oh, this is a black dot digit. Because it is. So it can't be 5. We've already looked at that. So that's got to be 3. That's got to be 5. That's got to be 6. Because it can't be 1.5. Which means that's not a 6. But this is in a relationship with this. It's got to be consecutive with it. And it's not 5. So that's 7. Which means that's not 7. And this black dot digit, well, that you can't... Oh, you just can't put 3 on it. That's the point. Neither of those can be 3, because then we'd have to put 6 on the other side of the black dot, and 6 doesn't exist there. So 3 goes here. 3 is in one of 2 places here. Also, how do we fill these black dots cells? There are only 6 valid black dot digits in Sudoku. They are the digits 1, 2, 4, 8, and 3 and 6. Now we can't put 3 and 6 in any of those, because if you try and put them in, you will get a 3 or a 6 on this side, and it will clash. So these must be the digits 1, 2, 4, and 8. Those are not 8. These are not 4. Okay. Here is another point, though. Well, I suppose there are a few ways of saying this, but the way I saw it first was to think, could I make one of these pairs a 2-4 pair? And the answer, of course, is no, because if I did, the other pair would be a 1-8 pair, and 1 and 8 are not in a 1-to-2 relationship with each other. So I know that the two pairs I have to form here are a 1-2 pair and a 4-8 pair. Well, this, if that was 8, that cannot be 4. So that's got to be the 8. That's got to be the 4. This square is now... no, I thought that would be resolved, but apparently not. Bobbins. Okay. Okay. Here is another little trick, parity trick then we can do. I've got to put an even number on this white dot. Well, this square can't be 4, 6, or 8, and that square can't be 4, 6, or 8. So they've got to be a 2, 3. It's got to be a 2 as the even digit. So that's a 2, 3 pair. 2, right, so now this isn't a 2, because you can see if I do try and make that a 2, that will be a 2, and that will be a 2. And you get 2 2s in row 4, so that doesn't work. So that's a 2. Oh, I'm not. I feel like I've almost got an overwhelming amount of information I'm trying to juggle here. There's so many places where there are restrictions, and I'm struggling to see what, the right place to look. Oh goodness, I've seen where it is. Look, there's a 6 here. Oh no, I was thinking, how can I put 5s and 7s there? But this one hasn't got a white dot relationship. That one does, so that's got to be 7. Which doesn't tell me whether 7 goes over here, I don't think. Okay. What about... Oh, okay, right. That cell is under pressure. Sort of by sudoku, but then by cave logic. It can't be a 1, 2, 3, or 4, so it needs to see 5 green cells. Well, it can only just actually achieve that if it sees the most amount of green cells that it can possibly see. So that is 5. Whoops. Which means there's a 5 in one of these cells by sudoku, which means the alien is a 5. A very ordinary number for a naughty alien. 5 is in one of these cells. Okay. So 8's got to be down here by sudoku. This number sees 4 vertically, but it can't... Oh, hang on, it sees 5. Oh, it's a 6. Oh, sorry, this cell is simple because it sees 4, 5. It can't be 5. That would repeat the 5 in its box. So it must be 6, and it must see this cell as green, which means we can put that little line segment in. And if that's a 6, look, we get the 6 at the top by sudoku. We can... Oh, what can we do with that? We can... What are the digits I need in this box? Look, I need 6s, 7s, and 9s. So that's a naked single. That is as naked as the day it was born, look. Because it can't be 6 or 9, and it can't be all the other digits. So that cell is simply a 7. Through the power of sudoku. That's a 6. That's a 9. 1, 2 and 3 left to place. So this is a 1 or a 3 in this cell. And I've no doubt we can do something quite clever with this. Remember what we said about this 9? It sees 8 vertically. Well, it's just seen a 9th green cell there, so that cell cannot also be seen, or this would be a 10. And that, look, has put that line segment in, which means that this cell has become outside the loop. Oh, is that red? Why have I got a red here? Oh, because the white, yes, because we had to turn to obey the white dot Masyu rule here. So that must be inside the loop, which is nice. So that gets us this. Now, what do we do next? 4 by sudoku goes in the circle here, which is already seeing 3. So this one either sees this cell or this cell only, which presumably is going to do something with the white dot there. Let me just think about that for a second. I don't think this is horizontal. And that's but it's because I can't visualize how I'm not going to create a small loop on the left if that's horizontal. Let me just try this for a second. If I make that a horizontal line segment, how can that work? I've then got a decision to make, basically. I've got to decide if this turns up or if it turns down. Now, if it turns up, this is inside the loop, which means that this for clue is finished, which means that must do that, that must do that, and there's no way I can continue the loop here. I have to close it because this is inside the loop and that needs to be delineated from this cell which is outside the loop. So that's totally broken. Now, the alternative, of course, is that this is not inside the loop, which forces this, but then this has to be inside the loop with that line segment, and that's a problem because I've run into exactly the same issue. I mean, everything's broken now. I just have to close the loop. That's the only valid option left. And again, I get a small loop here, and I'm going to get a bigger loop on the right-hand side. So I think what we're being told here is that this goes vertically, which means, look, how do we make this 4 work? Because we can't delineate this now. So the 4 must work like this. I hope this isn't also, this might also break. That's going to be a nightmare if that's the case. That's then forced. So I have to get through the 2. Yeah, okay, so I've got a loop now on the left-hand side of the grid that somehow needs to have connection to the right side of the grid. It's gorgeous, isn't it? So you have to do that. You've got to keep that going, turn that up, and turn that up, and that is how the loop finishes. That's beautiful. That is so beautiful. So all of that fixes all our shading's done, our loop is done, and all we've got to do now is think about sudoku. Is that really a 7? It seems to be. Okay, so that's 7, that's 5. 5 lives in one of these squares. Have I done all? Have I used all of these clues? I suspect not. But because they all do so many different things that it's very easy for me, at least, to forget things that they could be doing. This 4, that's the count which I've got. It's not Slitherlink, so that's okay. Okay, alright, so we've got to do... What are we going to do now to try and take this forward? We could look at... what about those squares? They are a 7-8 pair. What about 1, 2, 4? No, not 1, 2, 4. 1, 2, 6, 9. I don't really want to get into dramatically huge amounts of pencil marking. I really don't. What about this row then? 1, 5, 8, and 9. So that cell is only 1 or 5. It sees 8, 9 in its column. That cell, on the other hand, is 8 or 9 because it sees 1 and 5 in its column. So that cell is 8, 9 because it sees 1, 5 in its column, which means this cell is 1 or 5 and it can't be a 5. So that's 1, that's 5. That's done. That's done almost nothing. There's a 1 down there. Oh, I tell you what I have got. Yes, I see. I forgot that I couldn't just use this for its beautiful loop drawing properties. I have to also use it for its important consecutive properties. Now there's a 5 on the white dot apparently, which means this must be either 6 or 7 on this side, and it can't be 6. So there's a 4 on this side of the loop. Oh, but that's not useful. It doesn't do anything. There's a 7 in one of these, but it could be at the bottom. If this was a 7, we'd need 6 or 8 there, which would both be possible. Okay. Right. So what on earth do we do now? We could note that 3, 6, 8, 9. No, that's not going to do it. Is it going to be... Is there some black and white dots that I've not availed myself of, apart from this one? I've done that one. Yeah, I've done everything up there. I've done that one, have I? Yes. Okay, so it's got to be something different. What about that square? Is an 8 or a 9, isn't it, by Sudoku? So this square is a 2 or a 7 by Sudoku, but I think it can be either. 1, 2, 3, 7 down there. 5, 6, 7, 1. No, can't see how to use that. What about this column? 1, 2, 4, and 5. So that cell is a 1 or a 4 at the bottom of the grid. 2, 4, and 5, yeah. 1, 2, 6, and 9 here. 1, 6, or 9. I'm clutching at straws here. 1, 2, 3, and 7. That cell's a 1 or a 7. I don't know. I don't know what it could be. It's probably this white dot somehow. Is it? Oh, I know what it is. That's beautiful. That's just clever. It's quite simply clever. The trick is not to think about what has to go on the white dot. It's to think about what cannot go on the white dot. So where does 1 go in this box? And the answer is I don't really know, but I know it doesn't go on the white dot because it would need a 2 on it, which wipes it out of all of these squares, which puts it in the bottom of the grid, and then that square becomes a 7. That becomes a 1, that becomes a 4. This is no longer able to be a 1. 1 by... No, it's still... Maybe it still doesn't get done. The 7 does some 7s and 2s in column 5, which gives me a 3 and a 2 here, a 2 and a 1 here, a 1 and a 5 here, just unwinding Sudoku digits. 5 is now placed in my white dot, which we know has to go with 4, so we can put that in. The 7. That's become a 7, which we know must go with 6 or 8, and it can't go with 6. So that's 8, that's 8, that's 7, that's 2. Wow. Wow, the power of 1 down here is quite considerable. Right, these squares are 3, 4, and 8. So that's an 8 at the bottom, a 4 here, and a 3 here. We need 1, 6, and 9 in the bottom row. I don't know how to do that. Can't see how to do that. This is 2 or 9. This is... oh, no. Okay, that square's a naked single because it sees 2 and 9. So that's a 6. That's a 9. That's a 2. In this row, we've not put 3 in. In this row, we've not put 9 in. So these have got to be a 1, 6 pair, which we can put 6 in the corner, 1 here, 8 and 9 at the top by sudoku. Do we know this digit yet? Yes, that's a 3. That's a 1. This is an 8, 8, 9. I've not put 9 into this column, and I've not put 6 into this box. And that is such a beautiful puzzle. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Yes. Now, well, let me start by saying I will be interested in the comments, especially on this puzzle. If I'd been solving this puzzle on Logic Masters Germany, I would have immediately given it a 100% rating. It is sublime. There is so many gorgeous ideas here. But I am aware that I have assimilated during the course of my life the rules of Slitherlink, the rules of Cave, and the rules of Masyu to a reasonable extent. The rules of Sudoku not so much, but yeah, but it's such a lovely puzzle for me because I'm familiar with those constraints. If you aren't familiar, how did you get on with the puzzle? Could you understand the rules? Could you get the puzzle done? And did you appreciate some of the beauty in the way that I did? I really hope the answer's yes, because this is a beautiful puzzle, Math Pesto, and I loved it. And this video is 1 hour and 40 minutes shorter than yesterday's, and we discovered that there's an alien 5 in it and a 3 in the corner. What more could we ask for on a Monday? Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments how you got on. I enjoy the comments, especially when they're kind, and we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.